The story now unfolding around Sean Combs is no longer about celebrity or influence. It's about time, specifically. The more than 4 years he's expected to spend inside a federal prison cell. A sentence of roughly 50 months has placed him among thousands of other inmates, stripped of the power and insulation that once defined his daily life from the outside. The number looks fixed from the inside. His legal team insists it's anything but. Combs is currently incarcerated after being convicted onto counts related to the transportation of individuals for prostitution. He was acquitted of the most serious charges brought against him, a detail his attorneys argue should have dramatically changed the outcome. Instead, the judge imposed a sentence they claim reflects conduct the jury explicitly rejected. That distinction now sits at the center of everything happening. This is not a quiet acceptance of punishment. It's an active, ongoing legal battle. Motions are being filed, appeals are being prepared, and arguments are being sharpened around a single question. Does this sentence reflect the law? Or does it reflect something else entirely? From behind bars, Sean Combs is betting his future on that difference.
A significant legal development for Sean Diddy Combs. The disgraced music mogul has been granted a request for an expedited appeal of his prostitution conviction. His legal team argues that his 50-month prison sentence could be completed before his appeal is heard. Combs has until December 23rd to file his brief. If granted, oral arguments could be heard as early as April.
The appeal strategy taking shape around Sean Combs is built on one core accusation: that the punishment does not fit the conviction. His attorneys argue the court crossed a line by weighing allegations the jury did not uphold. In their view, the sentence wasn't just severe, it was structurally flawed. At trial, jurors rejected claims of racketeering and sex trafficking, the charges that carried the heaviest legal and moral weight. What remained were accounts tied to transportation for prostitution, according to the defense. Sentences for those offenses typically fall far below 4 years, often closer to a single year or less. They argue that even cases involving coercion routinely result in shorter terms, and in this case, the jury didn't find coercion at all. Appeal filings describe the judge's decision as an overreach. The defense claims the court effectively acted as an extra juror, reinterpreting testimony and assigning guilt where the jury declined to do so. Prosecutors reject that framing, arguing the law doesn't require proof of profit or force, only intent in action. Now the case sits in limbo. The appeals court hasn't yet ruled, and Sean Combs remains incarcerated while lawyers battle over definitions, precedents, and sentencing norms until a decision comes down. Every day behind bars becomes part of the cost of losing that argument.
Where Nigeria, Ghana,
South Africa.
moving away from the country or within the country?
Yeah, Africa. I am moving to Africa.
Is this due to pressure or?
Pressure from,
The whole drama.
yeah.
While the legal fight plays out in court filings and sealed motions, the consequences have spread far beyond prison walls inside the Combs family. The pressure has turned personal, and in some cases, permanent, public scrutiny surrounding Sean Combs' conviction has followed his children into their own lives, reshaping decisions that once would have seemed unthinkable. One of his sons, King Combs, recently said remaining in the United States no longer feels viable. Speaking candidly, he described an atmosphere of hostility and judgment that's made everyday life feel unsustainable. According to him, the family name has become a liability rather than a legacy, attracting resentment instead of respect. The solution he outlined was drastic relocation, not just for himself, but for the entire family. Africa, he said, represents distance from the noise, the stigma, and a media environment that never stops replaying the same accusations. Countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa were mentioned as places where they could rebuild without constant scrutiny. Whether that move ultimately happens remains uncertain, but the announcement itself was revealing. It showed how far the fallout has reached, turning a criminal case into a generational burden for a family once synonymous with American success. The idea of leaving the country altogether speaks volumes about how deeply the damage has set in.
There is a music producer who claims that back in 2020 that Diddy
sexually harassed him. That I won't get too much into it because it's a bit graphic, but that there was a sex act that Diddy had done in front of this guy, and that he was obviously like, look, this happened out of the blue. It's not something that I asked for, and yet there I was, and it's something that I had to deal with. So some time goes by, and he ultimately ends up filing a police report just a couple of months ago. Now, he also filed a lawsuit. So he files the civil lawsuit that is active, and now also he files the police report. And because of that, it has now triggered a police investigation. So
even with Sean Combs already behind bars, the flow of accusations hasn't slowed. Instead, new claims have surfaced, injecting fresh uncertainty into an already crowded legal landscape. This time, the allegations stem from events said to have occurred years earlier. A Florida-based music producer has publicly claimed he was sexually assaulted in an incident involving Sean Combs. The allegation has been referred to law enforcement, with authorities in Los Angeles now reviewing the complaint. The accuser had previously appeared as a John Doe in a civil lawsuit, but by identifying himself, he has effectively invited criminal scrutiny into the matter. At this stage, these claims remain allegations. No charges have been filed, and Sean Combs' representatives have declined to comment. Still, the investigation itself carries weight. It opens the door to additional evidence gathering and places new pressure on a system already juggling multiple cases tied to the same name. Timing further complicates the situation, with Sean Combs serving a federal sentence. Any new criminal proceedings could take years to resolve. Civil cases linked to him have already stalled, awaiting clarity on his incarceration and appeal status. For now, these allegations remain unresolved, adding another layer of uncertainty to his future. They reinforce a pattern that has followed him even into confinement. The legal reckoning is far from over. The situation grows more tangled as other names are pulled into the dispute. Counterclaims have emerged, transforming a single accusation into a broader legal standoff. What began as a personal claim has now become a multi-party conflict, with reputations on the line well beyond Sean Combs himself. The accuser has alleged another prominent figure was present during the incident, a claim that drew an immediate and forceful denial. In response, that individual filed a countersuit, accusing the accuser of fabricating the story as part of a deliberate smear campaign. Each side now claims to be the true victim and insists the other is acting in bad faith. Under normal circumstances, disputes like this would move through depositions, discovery, and eventual trial dates. But Sean Combs' incarceration has frozen much of that process. Civil suits connected to him remain paused, awaiting outcomes in his federal case and appeal. As a result, these competing claims could sit unresolved for years. This legal limbo benefits no one. Accusers seeking accountability face prolonged delays, while those accused remain under a cloud of suspicion without resolution. Evidence risks going stale, memories fade, and public narratives harden before facts are tested in court. What remains is a growing pile of unanswered questions. Each new lawsuit doesn't replace the last, it stacks on top of it, compounding uncertainty around Sean Combs' future and expanding the scope of consequences tied to his name.
It is 100%, 1,000% easier to transport illegal drugs, to transport weapons, to transport any illicit materials on a private jet. And if you have to go through security at the airport and run the risk of having drug dogs sniff out whatever you're carrying. And that's just a fact of life. At any airport in this country, people can basically just walk out in the flight line, get in their own jet, take whatever they want, and go wherever they want.
As legal pressure mounts, the financial reality has begun to surface in visible ways. Even for someone who once commanded vast resources, prolonged litigation has a way of draining wealth quickly. In Sean Combs' case, the signs point to a shift from abundance to preservation. One of the clearest indicators was the sale of his private jet from inside prison. Sean Combs authorized the aircraft's transfer to an anonymous buyer, a move reportedly bringing in tens of millions of dollars. While the exact figure was never disclosed, the motive was widely understood. Legal defenses of this scale demand massive funding, and liquidity now matters more than luxury. That decision followed reports that Sean Combs also tightened financial support to his children, placing them on fixed allowances. For a family long accustomed to unrestricted access to wealth, the change was stark. It suggested that cash flow, once assumed endless, had become something to manage carefully. The jet had not only been a status symbol but a revenue-generating asset, frequently chartered for profit. Selling it meant sacrificing future income for immediate relief, a trade-off that underscored the urgency of his situation. Taken together, these moves reveal a man no longer expanding an empire, but dismantling pieces of it to survive. The courtroom battles aren't just shaping his freedom, they're reshaping his financial legacy in real time.
President Trump says Sean Diddy Combs has asked him for a pardon.
I have a lot of people have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
First of all, I look at what's happening. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up from what I read. I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden,
With legal options narrowing and resources under strain, attention briefly turned to the most powerful intervention available under federal law, a presidential pardon. For someone facing years behind bars, it represents the fastest possible exit. For Sean Combs, it was a long shot, but one he reportedly pursued. A pardon would have erased his federal conviction and ended his sentence outright. According to reports, a request was made to President Donald Trump, briefly placing Sean Combs' fate in the hands of the White House. Public comments from the president suggested openness in theory, emphasizing that any decision would depend on the facts of the case rather than personal relationships. In practice, that openness went nowhere. Trump made clear he had no intention of commuting Sean Combs' sentence. No formal explanation was given, but the political calculus was obvious. The case had become highly public, emotionally charged, and closely tied to allegations of sexual misconduct. Granting relief under those circumstances would have triggered intense backlash. With that refusal, one more escape route closed. The federal system offered no shortcuts, no quiet intervention behind the scenes. Sean Combs' future would be decided only by judges and appellate panels, not executive discretion. For someone once accustomed to influence at the highest levels, the rejection carried symbolic weight. It underscored a new reality. Connections that once opened doors now hold little power. And some doors, once closed, do not reopen.
Diddy claimed that somebody held a knife to his throat. He woke up and this guy basically had him and he had the knife, and Diddy was at this person's mercy. Now, it's unclear what exactly happened from there. Was there a guard that came in? Did Diddy somehow fight this person off? Well, seems unlikely that happened. Or did the person just leave? I think that was something they wanted known during the hearing because they wanted the judge to take some pity on Diddy.
The most unsettling development didn't emerge from a courtroom, but from inside the walls meant to contain him. During a sentencing hearing, Sean Combs disclosed an incident that reframed his incarceration as not just restrictive, but dangerous. According to his account, he was assaulted while asleep in his cell at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a facility housing both pretrial detainees and sentenced inmates. Sean Combs told the court that another inmate approached him while he slept and held a knife to his throat, leaving him completely at the attacker's mercy. Details beyond that moment remain unclear, including how the confrontation ended or whether guards intervened. No independent account has publicly confirmed the specifics, and authorities haven't released a detailed statement. Still, the claim was serious enough to be raised in open court, where it appeared intended to illustrate the conditions he now faces daily. For the defense, it was evidence that continued incarceration carries risks beyond the loss of freedom. The episode highlights a harsh reality of prison life, particularly for high-profile inmates. Fame offers no protection inside a cell block, and in some cases, it makes someone a target. Whether the incident influences future legal decisions remains uncertain. What's clear is the shift it represents. Sean Combs is no longer insulated by security teams or wealth. His safety now depends on systems he does not control. In an environment where vulnerability is constant and consequences can be immediate, survival becomes its own battle.
He's not really going to be scot-free because Diddy's going to get a ton of civil cases after this trial is over. So any of you think Diddy's going to be completely out the woods, he'll be out the woods in terms of maybe he can get his freedom. Let's say he beats the feds here, which we're going to discuss, and I'll share my opinion and where it's coming from. But Diddy's going to get a ton of civil cases when this is done, and he's going to be paying out a whole lot of people. And because everything that's come out in court that the feds have thrown at him that have been generally generally pretty much agreed upon by Diddy's defense. He has no even reason to even fight these civil cases. He's going to be paying a whole bunch of people. So y'all keep that in mind, that Diddy's going to be paying a bunch of folks whether he wins or loses.
Taken together, these developments point to something larger than a single conviction or appeal. They illustrate how reputation can outlive freedom, following a person into every space they occupy. For Sean Combs, incarceration didn't pause. The consequences of his past, it amplified them inside prison. He faces physical vulnerability and isolation. Outside, his name continues to trigger lawsuits, investigations, and public backlash. His family is making life-altering decisions to escape the stigma attached to it. His assets are being liquidated to fund defense strategies that may or may not succeed. Even potential allies with the power to intervene have stepped away. This isn't a single downfall moment, it's a cascade. Each legal filing, allegation, and financial decision builds on the last, narrowing the path forward. Appeals may succeed or fail. Sentences may be reduced or upheld. But the broader damage has already been done. What remains unresolved is how this story ultimately ends, whether courts alter his fate, whether additional cases ever reach trial, or whether time itself becomes the final arbiter. For now, Sean Combs exists between outcomes, serving time while waiting on decisions that could redefine his future. The question is no longer how far he can fall. It's how much of what he built can survive the fall at all. That's where things stand right now, a sentence under challenge, new allegations unresolved, a family reshaping its future, and a reputation unraveling in real time. But this story is bigger than one name. It raises questions about power, accountability, and what happens when influence runs out. Do the appeals carry real weight? Do the consequences fit the convictions? And where do you see this going next? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to go deeper, click the video next to this one for another revealing story about public figures facing their own reckonings.